Thank you everyone for coming.
Másik. Ezt kaptam.
And thank you very much. Thank you everyone for coming or joining us online. My name is Szabolcs. I'm the managing director of UpScale Group, and we are here for an UpScale KPMG meetup, and I'm very excited. Before we get started, let me say thank you to our wonderful tech community team, UpScale tech community team, who make it possible to be here. Also for the marketing team of KPMG. And the program is quite short. We will have a presentation of János. Thank you very much for coming too. And after that, we will have a panel conversation. You can see the panel numbers there. I will not introduce them because we agreed that the panel will start with a short introduction. But thank you for Chenge for facilitating the panel conversation. So usually the way how we introduce UpScale is that we have a 4 minutes video. Today is a very special day because we have a new version of the video because in the last 2 years we grew up and we started with 20-something employees and now we have 54 employees. So we upgraded it with the new team photos and team shots. So you will see that, I think, and after that I will come back for short technical information. I will click. Would you mind to help me?
You can click anywhere on screen. Of course. Which direction was the mouse?
So this is a new version of the video, but still editing. Okay.
Should I launch it?
Yes, please.
All right. So I cannot.
the last under the edition, the last edition. So hopefully we'll see the team photo, which is the closing picture here, if it is possible. We try to resolve it, but if it's not possible, it's okay. Today is also a very special day. I will continue, and if it is finished, then it's okay. Because today we reached the 2,000 followers, right? Actually, yesterday. So let me greet Adam Kolozsvári, who was here a few minutes ago, I think, because he registered to our meetup, and let him just to greet with a small present. And thank you very much for following us. Thank you. Adam has a mobile development company as well, so it's a very special honor for us as well. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Good luck for the upcoming problems.
Thank you. Thank you. And I think this is time to start the speech of János. And if it is possible, then we will see the last shot.
I don't know. Let's
Yeah.
trying to restart it, but it just stuck.
Anyway, don't worry about that.
Okay. So,
Maybe just the technical information that the washrooms, the toilets can be found there, and probably you could see that we have some refreshments outside as well. And there are some free spots here and there, so please take a seat if you want, because the presentation will take about 5 hours or something. So don't worry about that. No, it will be 20 minutes or 30 maximum. 20. So
okay, throwing. So,
Okay. Before we start, János is our Flutter developer, and he's a high potential talent in our team, so I hope he will enjoy his presentation. This will be his first presentation for a big audience like you. So thank you very much, János.
thank you. Should I turn it off? Hi everyone, thanks for being here today. My name is János Dobszai, and I'm a Flutter developer at UpScale. So, first of all, let's see a short roadmap of today's presentation. We're going to take a look at what is Flutter, how it works under the hood, and what are the benefits of using it. And finally, we'll look at some sort of challenges in Flutter development and how to overcome them. So what is Flutter? Flutter is an open source UI toolkit created by Google. It's used to develop cross-platform applications from a single code base for many target platforms, including Android, iOS, Linux, macOS, and Windows, and even the web. Before we discuss its benefits, let's dive into how Flutter works. Typically, developers interact with Flutter through the Flutter framework, which is written in the Dart language. It includes a rich set of tools and creates many layers of abstractions. So in the end, developers are mostly exposed to the high-level Material and Cupertino APIs that offer comprehensive tools for implementing Google's and Apple's design languages. The core of Flutter is the Flutter engine, written mostly in C++. It provides a low-level implementation of these core APIs like graphics, text layout, file and network I/O, accessibility, plugin support, and the Dart runtime. These low-level implementations are then exposed to the developer through the Flutter framework, the green area that we just discussed before, which wraps this underlying C++ code in Dart classes. And finally, a platform-specific embedder provides an entry point and manages the event loop. The embedder is written in the language of the platform, for example, Java and C++ for Android, and Objective-C for iOS. Using this embedder, Flutter code can be integrated into existing applications as a module. This is the case when we want to add Flutter to an existing app. Or the code may be the sole content of the application. This is common for apps written entirely in Flutter. Flutter includes embedders for all the target platforms. What happens when we create a new application in Flutter? Typically, the Flutter create command is used, which creates a new project. and it includes the beige colored parts of this diagram. This is the code that you will work on and that you commit to your repository when you work with Flutter. The rest, which is basically the same thing that we just covered before, is what Flutter provides. So let's see some of the benefits of Flutter. First of all, with Flutter, you write an app once and run it anywhere, including all the target platforms that we just mentioned. Whereas previously we needed a separate development team for each one of these, now we can use this awesome tool. But there is so much more to Flutter. Out of the box, it comes with everything you need to develop beautiful user interfaces. These can closely match the style and design language of iOS and Android, or you can also customize them to your own liking. It also offers a feature called Hot Reload that allows developers to see changes they make to their code in real time without having to recompile the entire application. And it has one of the most active communities, providing lots of support and many open source packages. I would like to give you a glimpse of what UIs are possible with Flutter. Google Pay, or now called Google Wallet, the payment application that almost everyone uses on their Android device, is entirely built with Flutter. eBay Motors, a branch of eBay focusing on vehicle sales, built their cross-platform mobile app using Flutter. And after many years of struggling to support all their different app variations at BMW, they decided to move everything to Flutter, creating one code base that they can compile to any platform. Toyota uses Flutter for their in-car infotainment systems, allowing them not only to build a fantastic-looking UI, but also to quickly send out prototypes to testers onto regular Android and iOS tablets, instead of requiring them to have the actual car hardware. Finally, Rive is a platform I personally used. It's a website for creating animations, kind of like a simple version of After Effects, and it's built with Flutter. I would like to show you Hot Reload in action, an amazing feature of Flutter, which allows developers to quickly develop and iterate on their UI. During development, Flutter apps run in a virtual machine that offers a stateful hot reload of changes without needing to recompile. Apps only got compiled to machine code when you're building them for release. Stateful hot reload is hot because we don't need to restart our app, and stateful because we also get to keep our application state. That means that if a developer is currently logged into the app, navigated to a specific page, or opened a specific entry, or even fill out a form with data, they can experiment with UI without having to navigate back there or having to fill out that form all over again. To give you a real-life analogy, imagine that you're making a sandwich, and once you made it, the client realizes that they wanted mayonnaise instead of ketchup. But the ketchup is already in the sandwich, right? So with Flutter's Hot Reload, you don't have to make an entirely new sandwich all over again. Instead, you can just magically swap the sauce. I remember several times when I was showing an app to a client, and they wanted to change just a slight detail, and I was able to change it right before their eyes. They were always impressed. I believe one of the biggest strengths of Flutter is also its community, because a lot of active enthusiasts are constantly contributing to the framework and developing packages for various functionalities. There are community-built packages out there for almost anything you can imagine, like custom widgets, databases, state management solutions, and third-party SDK integrations. The benefits of Flutter didn't go unnoticed by big companies. We already saw a few examples in the previous slides, and now let's see their thoughts about adopting Flutter. Google Play's employees were thrilled to use it. Kiji, a trading and advertising website, said they were able to retrain their native developers quickly and create a better experience. Toyota said Flutter was critical to their success, and it exceeded eBay's expectations. Nubank complemented Flutter's documentation and tooling and also noted much faster onboarding times. Alibaba said Flutter cut their development times in half on new features. And the Journaling App CEO said that Flutter allowed them to develop their app with a much smaller team in record time. So, as a Flutter developer, we face slightly different challenges compared to native development. And in this presentation, I would like to cover 2 examples and show solutions to them. Our first challenge is getting native code to work with our Flutter apps. So as I mentioned earlier, Flutter has a great selections of plugins. But hold on, I said package earlier, and now I'm saying plugin. Well, a package is a bigger category. It's Dart terminology for something, for any kind of library that we can import into our Dart project. A plugin or plugin package, on the other hand, is specific to Flutter. This is a type of package that contains not only Dart code, but also platform-specific native code, like Kotlin, Swift, or JavaScript. So a plugin is like giving your Flutter app a new superpower. Here are a couple of popular plugins for Flutter. We use plugins to access the camera, to pick images from the gallery, store user data on the device, open a web view, or even for launching straight into the web browser. We can also use plugins pre-made by various third parties to integrate with their solutions. There are plugins for implementing all kinds of Firebase and AWS services, Facebook and Apple sign-in, Maps, and many others. But sometimes you want to use something that only exists as native code to your target platform. It could be a third-party solution that only provides SDKs for iOS and Android, but not for Flutter. Or it could mean that we internally developed some screen or functionality, maybe for another app, or maybe for the previous version of the same application. And now we want to use this in Flutter. That's when building your own plugin is essential. So how does a plugin look like? As I mentioned before, a plugin is also a Dart package, so it contains a Dart API. This is how our Flutter app will see and interact with our plugin. Then we add native code to implement these methods for each platform. And finally, Flutter's method channels can be used to connect them, allowing the Dart code to invoke these native methods. This, in practice, is done using asynchronous calls, and usually JSON is sent as data. So let's take a look at how we would go about building our own plugin. First of all, we can use the Flutter create command to generate a plugin template. Specify our plugin's name and target platforms. This will create the following project structure. Here you can see folders like Android, iOS, and lots of other boilerplate stuff pre-generated for us. Let's take a closer look at the lib folder containing our Dart code. For example, Hello is a class that contains our plugin's public API. Its only job is to forward any calls to the platform interface. So what is a platform interface? In this case, Hello Platform is a platform interface implementation, and this is where we describe how we will communicate with our native code. And finally, we implement this platform interface in the form of this Hello Platform class. And here you can see method channels in action. All right, that's it for Dart. Let's see how the Android folder looks like. As you can see, it follows a similar project structure to a full-blown Android project. It has its own Gradle configuration, manifest, but no main activity. Instead, we have a class implementing some Flutter interfaces. This allows the plugin to attach itself onto the Flutter engine and listen to method calls through the method channels. Here we can see one particular implementation, but the possibilities here are limitless. We could pass any data or invoke any Android API directly from here. The iOS folder is very similar. It has a pod spec file for managing dependencies. And we can also observe the same pattern. The plugin registers itself with the engine and starts listening to method calls. One concrete example here, where I had to create my own plugin, would be Adyen, a payment provider that I recently integrated into a Flutter project. Adyen doesn't provide its own official Flutter plugin, but they do have solid Android and iOS SDKs. Luckily, there are many unofficial solutions out there, previously built and published. But I found it challenging to adopt one of these into the project, since most of them are outdated and probably ever used by a single developer, tailored to their own needs. But they gave me a solid foundation to build onto. Plus, another huge help for building a Flutter plugin was the React Native SDK. As I came to understand, the way Flutter and React Native interface with the native platform is quite similar. So looking at their React code was very helpful in understanding how Adyen would work in a cross-platform environment. In the end, based on existing Flutter and React sources, and also closely working with Adyen, we managed to build an Adyen Flutter plugin for this project. The feedback from this plugin was also very helpful for them, and they will be working on their own official Flutter plugin in the future, taking our findings into account. Hopefully, in some time, everyone in the Flutter community will have their own official access to this plugin. As I mentioned in the beginning, when an app is built in Flutter from the ground up, the Flutter code can be the entire content of this app. But Flutter can also be integrated into existing applications as a module. This allows developers to smoothly transition from their native development to cross-platform development, developing only specific new parts in Flutter and avoiding the need to rewrite existing features. In the following slides, we'll take a look at how this works and how you can integrate Flutter into your own native application. I brought you some examples of companies who already decided to extend their native apps with Flutter. PUBG, one of the most popular mobile games out there, built their community module in Flutter. Alibaba created their entire item details page in Flutter. And finally, a practical example from UpScale would be our Direct Debit SDK. The idea here was to create an SDK using Flutter that any developer can add to their native apps. These direct debit QR codes have a complicated structure, making them tricky to parse, and the results must be validated against frequently changing set of public keys stored on a server. This SDK simplifies this multi-step process into just one. It can be invoked from a native app. It reads, parses, and validates the QR code, and passes it back to the native app in a convenient JSON structure. In the following slides, we'll take a look at how you can build such a module. First of all, we'll use the familiar Flutter create command to initialize this module. It comes with a ready-made Flutter example app. But in our case, of course, we customized it. For example, we built routing and all the necessary pages that will be displayed by the SDK. So, once our Flutter code is built, how do we embed it into our existing apps? For Android, we use the above command to build Android archive files, which is a package format used to distribute and share libraries. This means that our Android apps will be able to depend on this library that we just built. Now that our Flutter module is all packaged up and ready to be used, we can start configuring an Android project that will import it. Our previous command created not only Android archives, but also a repository. Of course, later, the Android archives could be pushed to a remote repository, but for simplicity's sake, here I'm referencing them locally. Then in our Android activity, we can initialize Flutter. In this project, I'm doing this in the main activity right when the application starts up. It creates a warm Flutter instance, which can later be accessed in a split second. Of course, this initialization can be done lazily when a user first navigates onto our Flutter activity, but this will cause a noticeable delay, as the Flutter engine takes about 1 second to warm up. And finally, we configure a method channel, which will act as a bridge between our Flutter module and our native app. That's it for the initialization. Now we need a way to show Flutter. We can create a simple native button and register an action listener. Then in this listener, we can finally launch the Flutter activity. Here, we can navigate back and forth between our native app and our Flutter module. Here, see our native app and the Flutter module we just built. The same process is true for iOS with nearly identical steps. In this case, we can choose to embed our Flutter app using frameworks or CocoaPods. It's recommended to use the latter, as it makes getting our dependencies much easier. It's a great platform, a great cross-platform tool with many benefits and provides convenient ways to integrate with native code. So come to the Dart side. Thank you for your attention.
If you have any questions, then I think Janos can answer maybe free here, and he will stay with us, so you can ask questions outside as well. So quick questions, it is okay also if you want to ask questions afterwards. Oh, thank you, sorry. Can you please pass the microphone for the stream?
Okay, thank you for this. My question is, how hard is to debug a plugin?
Well, for Flutter developers, it takes some experience with native apps because you will have to launch a native application, use debug tools like Android's Logcat or Xcode, but I don't think it's that complicated.
There is a question here as well.
Thank you. Hi, Janos. I know that this hot reload feature is a really cool thing. I think many developers like it, and I just wanted to ask about your experience. Like, is it really making your development experience that much better?
It definitely does. As I said, I already had several presentations with clients when I could just change something right there on the spot. And I think it's really impressive. We need to take into account how we manage state here, because we need to get the right state management solution for hot reload to work perfectly. For example, by using Flutter's own stateful widgets, this is quite easy. But if we store the app state somehow incorrectly, like not exactly how the framework would, then hot reload can actually lose the app state and go back to the beginning. But most of the times it's quite useful. The only case when it's not working really well is when we change something that's not in the Flutter, in the Dart code, but a native configuration, like we want to change something on the Android manifest or Xcode configuration. In those cases, of course, we will have to recompile the entire application to see those changes. But Flutter doesn't really have influence on these areas.
We have maybe one more question. We have time for one more question. Last one.
Thank you. So hi everyone. as far as I know, there are some competitors for Flutter, I mean cross-platform development frameworks. Can you mention some of these and tell us why Flutter is better, or why did you choose Flutter over them?
Okay. I only tried one competitor before, which was Ionic. And then once it came to building my first mobile application, I did some research. It was already several years ago, so I don't remember the details exactly. But for me, Flutter came out first because it has a great community, lots of packages, it evolves fast, and also performance-wise, it's much closer to a native application compared to something like Ionic, because Ionic runs Dart code in the background, same as, no, Ionic runs JavaScript in the background, same as React Native. And Flutter compiles Dart code to binary, so it's actually much faster on the target platform, with one exception, which is the web. Also, I think why Flutter is great because it supports all these platforms. I'm not sure if all the other cross-platform solutions also support so many target platforms as Flutter does. So that's also a consideration, I think. And usually, so I don't have experience with React Native, but I talked to a couple of developers before who switched from React to Flutter, and somehow they just preferred working with it. They found the community more open, more enthusiastic, and also they found the way you build applications simpler or easier, more straightforward.
Okay, the last.
How about releasing? So you have talked about lot about development, but how easy to release a Flutter app to the stores?
Releasing a Flutter app is just as easy or hard as releasing a native app. So when you release a Flutter application, the way it works is it's actually packaged into a lightweight native app. This is what I talked in the beginning. There is an embedder which runs our Dart and Flutter framework. So when releasing, you have to have some experience or struggle a little to understand these, to understand how Apple and Google release processes work, how to interact with their store UIs, how to pass reviews. Yeah, it's but I wouldn't say it's more difficult for Flutter. It's just exactly the same learning curve, I think, but you have two of them. So when you're a native developer, you just need to focus on Apple or Google, but as a Flutter developer, you kind of have to learn both of these.
Thank you very much, János, and for everyone. I think János will be here with us, so you can ask still questions if you have more. Yeah. And I think I can agree with you that one of the big advantages of Flutter is the engaging community. And this is a clear proof that we have 80 chairs here full of people, and also online people joined us. So thank you very much, János, again. I think we can clap him. Thank you. It was very successful. Now let me ask Cenge to the stage, who is our colleague as an IT business analyst, and she will moderate the panel conversation, and she will introduce the panel as well, as we agreed. So thank you very much, Cenge.
Okay, thank you. Hi, guys. Thank you, János. So I would like to, so our panel today runs in a hybrid mode. We have 3 panelists here on site with us and 2 of them online. So let me ask András Gyenes from KBC here to the panel discussion, Dávid Földi from OTP, and Daniel Kübler from Fusion. And then online is joining us Csongor Fogel and Daniel Dallos. And I will ask a little bit of technical help, maybe to let us also see them. Guys online, you can also say hi so we can check your voice once again. Hello. Ah, we can see you, and I think you can also see us. Okay, very good, thank you. um, I will sit here, maybe over there, and then I can also see the online people. Oh, okay. So let's start with a short introduction round, if you don't mind. I would like to ask you for a short intro, mainly focusing on your roles and how Flutter came into the picture of your area of work, maybe the motivation behind finding a cross-platform development tool. I mean, it's a lot of questions, so you can just pick the ones that you want to answer. But just give us a little bit of context, who are the people who are joining us today for this conversation, and I will give you the first chance.
Okay, hi everybody, my name is Donny Kubler and I'm from Fusion, and you don't know Fusion because this is a company that operates restaurants. So we have 3 brands. The least familiar for you will be Anna Cafe in the Vörösmarty Street with 2 units. Bellozzo would be a little bit more familiar, and Burger King would be the most familiar for both of you, and I'm working there as a head of technology. We work with third-party vendors. We don't have any internal development or operations. So my main role is to get together a team, what puts together good requests, good specification, tests, and manages all the requests coming from guests or other departments. So we are the tech hub in this company for all of those brands, and where I meet Flutter or where I connect to Flutter is the Burger King application, what is developed in Flutter for the last 10 months already.
Skip just for a moment. Okay, hi everyone. First of all, thanks for the invitation. My name is András Gyenes and I work for KBC Securities Hungarian branch. And basically we are a brokerage firm and we have an online trading platform for our clients who can manage their portfolio in our system and can make trades, can trade with stocks on the major exchanges in Europe and in the USA. And we got to Flutter was that like 4 years ago, we had a web-based trading system for a long time ago, but we didn't have an application, a mobile application. Our web-based system was responsive, but we thought that we would need a true native or almost native mobile application because the user experience is much better. And our major factor where we chose Flutter was that we have a quite small team, only 5 people, and we couldn't afford to hire new people or maintain 2 separate applications. So our first or most important factor was that we would need a cross-platform framework, and we chose Flutter. It's a long story why, but I think this was a good decision. We have a good experience with Flutter, so basically we are. It's a promising framework, and I think it was the right choice. So I'm passing the microphone now. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm David Földi. I'm the front-end chapter lead at OTP, specifically the Flutter development chapter lead. And basically, I don't know why we choose Flutter. I wasn't there. But I'm happy to be a part of the Flutter ecosystem and the community as well, and be here and answer all of the questions. And basically, that's a short intro.
Okay, thank you very much. And then I will ask Csongor, who is wearing a shirt that is very fitting to the occasion.
Voice is clear. So, hi everyone, my name is Csongor, szép estét. Right now, and basically in the beginning, I forced myself to learn deeply. With my friends, we started to teaching class at Vienna. So I had an opportunity to basically Talabat, which is a part of the delivery hero. We are active on 9 countries. Migrating to Flutter, and basically we have like millions of users each days, and basically this is how I joined.
Thank you. And Daniel?
Thank you.
Hi guys, nice to meet you. I'm Daniel. I'm right now joining from Leuven, Belgium. Here I work as a chapter lead at TO Technologies, and I'm also responsible for the SDKs we built for the mobile operating systems. Also my journey started with native development on Android more than 10 years ago, and then I started to work also on iOS, and I work on SDK, so I usually provide software for other companies to integrate and then play with. And right now within TO, we develop a video player SDK for OTT companies, for everyone who want to play video in their apps, basically, with all the challenges they face. And in the private life, I started to use Flutter because I just didn't like React Native. So from the moment Flutter was out, I jumped on it and I started to develop applications there. And then within TO, we started to build a Flutter SDK because we saw the need from our customers. So basically, they use our native SDKs, but they wanted to use something cross-platform. They had smaller teams. They wanted to try something new, and we saw their suffering basically, and they always come back with the same issues. And we decided to build our own SDK. That's my story.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we already jumped into some comparisons and benefits and so on. So I would like to ask the rest of you, if you didn't mention it, but you have maybe an experience or a thought about it, like what motivated you or the people before you, I don't know, to choose Flutter specifically. How do you think it compares to other options for cross-platform development or anything in that area?
Yeah. So when I first encountered Flutter, it was actually called Sky Engine. And I went through all of the C++ code for it. And that's when I actually changed my mind that I want to work with this. It wasn't even like the shape that it is in today. And in the meantime, so it was like 2016. And since then, it went through a lot. But basically, what encouraged me to start using it is the control that it gives me to go through from top to the bottom. So I have control over every pixel, everything that I can do.
I have to talk about a totally different dimension because, it's really rare when somebody who orders an application, as a business unit knows about what's happening deep down. So, I am the one who have to tell the other parts of the management that, hey, we will use a multi-platform tool to deliver our application. And there we don't talk about pixels or not even events or whatever's. We talk about time to market. And when we said that, hey, this is the best possibility for us to reach fast time time to market and rapid development, and have new functions for all platforms. And the other thing that, you know, the customers or guests at Burger King don't always have the best mobile devices in their hand. So they are from every part of the Hungarian population. So we needed a solution what helps us to cover the fragmentation of the mobile environment with keeping the native or the installation part of the application, because for guest engagement this is very important for us to install the app and to enable our company to send push messages to get you hungry. So those were the time to market and the nice coverage of different fragmented mobile devices was a big plus for us, and it was a must because we used titanium and end-of-life games. So it wasn't really a decision what we were talking a lot about.
And sorry, just a follow-up that you mentioned that you started 10 months ago. So I assume this means that the time it lived up to the expectations.
Yes, it lived up to the expectation, but the first 2 months was nightmare. But it was not because the Flutter, but because, you know, migrating from titanium to Flutter meant for us a totally new application with everything built out from scratch. We tried to use it as an opportunity to get some new features or get some things done better, avoid some workarounds what were there for years. But on the other hand, you know, regression testing and things like that took a lot more time to get everything on the same level than it was before. It's a completely new application, and this is what you cannot explain to a management. Hey, we had a cool, well-working application. You got this new one. Why isn't this working on the same level? So it's like building a totally new application from business standpoint.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so as I mentioned, the first major factor was the size of the development team. So we didn't want to maintain two separate applications. And the second major factor was the UI, because our web-based system was already material design, and we wanted to keep that design language. And Flutter has a complete material UI design UI kit out of the box. So by choosing Flutter, we could save the time to develop a custom UI system. We could jump straight in and start to implement actual features of the application. So this saved a lot of time for us. So it was quite an obvious choice to choose Flutter, or at least try Flutter. And our first impressions were good. We were satisfied, so we jumped in and started to work on the features.
And Csongor and Daniel,
would you like to add to this?
From my side, basically, the whole story started with like a main project, which was the World of Expo in 2020, which was organized in Dubai. This event was like postponed in 1 year, and basically later on, the company Talabat had to build basically like an entire end-to-end mobile application in such a short time, which was like less than 6 months. And basically, from capacity-wise and mainly, they kicked off this project and they used the technology of Flutter. Basically, this project was successful. They saw that the management could gain some confidence that how easy it was not just like building something from scratch in Flutter, but how easy it was like migrating to an existing application, and how fast and quick was the learning curve of the native developers. So basically, this project was also built and implemented by native mobile engineers. So let's say that from the time to market, which was multiple times mentioned, that was one of the main motivator for us as well. And also, it also helps us to reducing the feature differences between iOS and Android. We could basically unifying so many lessons and so many technicalities during our development. And last but not least, it also helps us to basically, if there's an issue, we just need to raise one fix in the Flutter code base. So there were like several positive effects.
Yeah. So from my end, I think the aha moment was when we had an HR tool at the company, and then I couldn't see my whole team who is out of office, who is not, and also for the whole office. And they had an API, so I said, okay, let's develop something. First, I started with the mobile applications. It was easily done from one code base, and then suddenly people started to ask, okay, but can I use it on my Windows computer? Can I do something on my Mac? I was like, yeah, let's try. So I pulled the alpha version of Flutter, and then suddenly you had a 5 application ready out of the box, and plus you had a progressive web app for web that everyone could use. And that was the moment when I was like, okay, this is really good. And then what I see from the private project, that you need the time to market, that's a really big advantage, that you just write it once and it's there on all the platforms. And also from our customers, what I see that, yeah, they just want to go fast, right? If you are slow in today's world, then you will miss the moment, and then there is no momentum, and then you lose customers, you lose money. And why they really come to us with Flutter, and then also regarding React Native, because they just want to release as soon as possible, and they don't want to spend separate time developing for iOS and Android and all the others. They just want to have it once.
Thank you very much. Let's talk about the development team a little bit. How did you get the right talent for working with Flutter? I mean, today you can probably get students out of BMA and they will finish the Flutter course and know this, but maybe 5 years ago, I don't know how was the market. Could you hire specifically Flutter developers, or you had mobile developers or front-end developers who gained experience in Flutter? How did that work out for you?
Tough question, really. Usually it's hard to get a good talent, and it's not about Flutter, but rather than the knowledge. So it's a hard journey, don't get me wrong. I have a few colleagues here, by the way, so they could tell the story. We probably follow a strategy, for picking different skills about, I would say, the domains. So we have mobile developers, web developers, and vice versa. They work on all of the platforms, if that's enough.
For us, it was easy because we didn't hire any new people, and we didn't have much experience with mobile development. We already had our web-based systems, which was written in Angular. So we already used TypeScript and JavaScript, and we had some experience with front-end systems, but not much with mobile. So basically, we had to learn everything from scratch. And in the beginning, we were thinking like, should we learn a new language, Dart, or should we choose another tool which uses JavaScript, for example? But in the end, we decided to go the Flutter way, and we were like, learning new things is always good for a developer, and that Dart seemed to be a quite simple language to learn. So basically, we kept everyone, and we learned everything from scratch, the language, the framework, and here we are. And the app is still running.
And would you say that this was a rather smooth transition? Or?
First steps were not easy, because setting up the system and just be able to develop on a daily basis. And for example, upgrading the framework, upgrading the packages. So the learning curve in the beginning was a little bit steep, but after a few months, it was much faster. And we are talking about the early days of production-ready Flutter because this was in 2019 when Flutter barely reached the 1.0 version. So everything was moving very fast around Flutter. New packages, the framework itself changed very quickly. So the first few months were a little bit tough, but after that, it smoothed out.
Thanks. Looking at the screen, Daniel.
Daniel, someone?
Yeah, I can start. Yeah, from our end, we work with internal developers who are already at the company who are mobile developers, basically. And for them, it was pretty easy to pick up the knowledge. And I think it's also an advantage if you know what to do on the native side. Because I also see it from the customer's end that basically they have developers who know Flutter, but they don't know the underlying part. So they know what to do with the widgets, how to put them, they know the fancy animations, but from the moment it goes into native, then they are lost. And then you have to help them out. And also the topic that Janos just mentioned in the presentation, the bridging native views and stuff like that, that's a bit harder part for someone who have never worked with native. So for us, it's an advantage if someone knows. And also, if we need to hire a developer, we don't mind if someone is just a native developer and open to learn Flutter. Because yeah, for us, it's still, we really need to know the platform specific things. We can just live on the high level.
From my side, I can highlight what Daniel mentioned, that native mobile knowledge is super important, and basically in almost all of, almost most of the Flutter positions. Talking about our team, basically we have like a large team, let's say we have almost 60 mobile engineers. Basically we started around 2020 Android and iOS engineers. We step-by-step transitioned to Flutter. We had multiple workshops, learning sessions. We learned together the language, but we are still hiring. Tomorrow we will have also a Flutter full day hiring day for our Dubai and Cairo offices. But basically one of the most learnings or our main motivation is not just finding the best Flutter engineers. We are trying to finding the best product engineers. So for example, from our side, we don't know that some years later, do we need to migrate to another technology? Do we need to pick up another cross-platform technology? So basically our interviews, if we are talking about how can we find talent, it's not specifically focusing on the Flutter technologies. The foundation is really important. We are basically measuring and trying to evaluating the communication skills as well, not just the technical one. So it's not just about the fancy animations, having a clear understanding how to maintain an application is really important in our product development.
Thanks. I think this aligns with what you said, David. And I know that you don't have a team in-house, but if you have anything to add.
Yes, what I seen that for that partners where we had native background or experience with other frameworks. As I mentioned, we migrated from Titanium, so it was not a new thing for them. And native connection is very important for us because we have some things what aren't there yet. But as I learned from Janos' presentation, he created the plugin what I need, so we will talk after.
Very good. Okay, thanks. And just a follow-up question on that maybe, because many of you mentioned that the starting point was mobile developers. Maybe we don't have to be specific to them, but what would you say today to someone who is working as a native mobile developer? how to get started with Flutter, what are the important skills and resources to pick up if they want to dive into this world.
I'm the outsider again. I would say, the openness, because I see native developers, they are very hard on working with native and very strict with anything else. And I think the openness can open them up. And, to get them believe that their knowledge won't be unnecessary, it will be the great foundation to understand the whole from top to bottom architecture.
My advice would be to forget everything. Like, not just Flutter, everything, really. And be open-minded and learn everything from scratch.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I would say the same. So willingness to learn new technology, new language, and of course, native mobile experience always helps. So basically that's.
Csongor, how did the guys take when you started it with Flutter?
I would recommend for everyone to visiting the official documentation, not just for new joiners, but basically for any developers, because it's super well documented. We can also click, drag, and try what we are building in our browser. So I think it's we have tons of really resources, official documentations, which is provided by the official Flutter team. But I think the community is also amazing, doing an amazing job. So there are tons of really great YouTube videos. We can also easy to connect with other Flutter developers around the world. So definitely there are tons of opportunities. And I cannot truly highlight anything. With my colleagues from the university, we are aiming to also publishing our classes to public. So hopefully I can also contribute for new joiners learning.
Yes, I agree. Indeed, I think the community is really amazing, and it's just everywhere you go, you can see that people give you nice ideas, ways to solve issues. So I think if you start with it, you will find solutions for everything. I think you just have to be indeed open, as the others mentioned, towards the new technologies, and honestly, just create a sample app from the Flutter project and try to play with it, see how easy with the hot reload and how easy to play with the code. And indeed, online you can find a lot of tutorials and a lot of stuff. And also from my end, I really like the whole thing with the native way. So I also releasing a course on my end to teach people from native development towards Flutter, do the bridging and everything. So if you are interested, you guys can follow me on LinkedIn and you will get insights.
Very good, thank you very much. So we have chosen Flutter, we have the team, hopefully the right people. So let's talk about a bit the development itself. How do you see that Flutter solves the challenge of having a cross-platform development tool, but still enabling platform-specific features or functionalities? Can you tell me a bit about this? And maybe I turn to you guys for a change first. So Daniel, online.
It's an interesting one. So I think Flutter as a cross-platform developer tool, I think it's really strong because they improve it day by day. So reintroduced macOS support, Windows support. So even you have a generic tool that you can basically use to build everything. Even the web support gets pretty good. So I think it has a place in the toolbox of a developer, and also for a company. I think it's a good choice to go with. Regarding the native support, I think the plugin base is always increasing. So people see missing information, missing stuff. Like also Janusz just implemented the bridging towards the payment SDK. Yeah, people see the hole and they make the plugin. They make it a bit shiny and then they release it on a pub dev package repository, and then you are free to use. And yeah, because everything is open source, you are free to fork it and tailor it to your needs if it's needed.
I absolutely agree with Daniel. I think one of the best things in Flutter that the team also saw the value of the native integrations, and basically they also shared their roadmap, and their main yearly strategy was like also enhancing the communication between native and the Flutter side. They introduced almost every major version new features like supporting basically these integrations. In the beginning, the iOS side was suffering with some performance issues. They could basically easily to fixing that with the upcoming releases. Right now, we are also experimenting different rendering engines, not just the skill engine is the only one. So basically, we have tons of new features. Recently, also was publicated the foreign function interface is FFI package, where basically we can use like bindings between native languages and our Dart applications. And anyone like we should not be scared about when it comes to cross-platform technology. So as there are tons of like open source packages what we can use in our application, most of the times we don't need to relying on, or we don't need to start like coding in Java, or we don't need to start learning C# or Swift. And one of the things what Google also like recognized that these open source packages needs to have good maintainers. So basically one of the best teams and engineering teams are maintaining these open source packages. For example, the foldable package is maintained by Microsoft. So if someone wants to deploying something for like a foldable device, and they can be sure that it won't be like it won't break in production. And there are other big companies and basically like trustful companies who are like contributing in the open source world widely.
Thank you. And just a clarification question for me personally. So are all the platform specific differences solved by native code, or the other way around? Like, is only the kind of native capabilities of the platform that is the difference when you do cross-platform applications? I don't know. I hope it makes sense.
If the question was coming to me, I think we need to always consider like using a plugin or native code when we need to talk with the machine itself, with the hardware. So if I want to fetch an information for the GPS sensor, Bluetooth, so like everything which is like under the hood, that can require some basically like plugins or packages, basically native implementation. But everything which is like UI, what we can see, what we can use to interact, the animations, etc. These are basically will be and will stay in the Flutter side.
And this is true across
mobile and web as well. Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Sorry.
So I can speak only about mobile development because we don't use Flutter for web or macOS or Windows or Linux. But I can say that for mobile, cross-platform development works very well. So basically 95% of our application code is common for iOS and Android. And we only had to write some code on the native layer because we had to use an outside package which didn't have a Flutter plugin. So we had to write some platform code, but as János presented for us, it was quite easy. And in fact, our first proof of concept application was to integrate this module on the native level and create some very basic application, basically a login. And our first impressions were very positive. It worked on the first attempt. So I think it works quite well. And like the guys mentioned, The community is vivid. There are a lot of packages, a lot of plugins which hide the differences between the various platforms. So I think it works very well. Of course, you have to be a little bit careful when you choose plugins, because not every plugin is well maintained. But for the most common tasks, there are at least 2 very quality packages. So I think for mobile, cross-platform works very well.
I would follow up on the packages, first of all. We are a bit different because we kind of use less than usual. So we are aiming for using basically none of third-party packages. That's not true, so we are using some, don't worry. But our goal is to maintain the application from left to right or top to bottom. So we only do use packages which are well maintained, that's for sure. So that's the same thing here. And for like native counterpart, we actually started doing an implementation for a native SDK. It was pretty straightforward. So I was done in, I don't know, 30 minutes. It's not that hard. I think everyone who does the basic hello world example for the plugin can do it. Just keep on going.
What I've seen when we first checked the first Flutter version of the Burger King application, I've seen 2 things. One was that there were no troubles with the GPS signal checks, because you know that kind of you can order only from the 100-meter circle around the restaurant or closer. And we had troubles in Titanium always. And you know, we get the package and it was so good. So we didn't have any issues during the tests with that kind of part of the application. And the other thing what I've seen, and I feel some negativity when we talk about, you know, animations and UX lot. Let's talk about code. But you know what I've seen, that for the same developers who developed the Titanium version, creating the same in Flutter, they had a much better UI toolkit, that it was immediately a better looking and faster application for the first time when I got it in my hand. So it was, we hadn't got to give specifications that make it prettier, because it was prettier because they used the capabilities of Flutter.
Thank you very much. And actually, you halfway answered my next question. Sorry, Csongor, do you want to add something, or? Sorry, I didn't see it.
No.
Okay. Because I wanted to ask a bit more about the ecosystem around Flutter. So you mentioned that there is a lot of libraries and packages available. I also hear that you have to choose carefully which one to use. But apparently, because of the large community, this is a very vital part of the ecosystem. I don't know if you want to add anything, or maybe an example or use case of using a package or library that is a third party. Mm-hmm.
I want to add something, because I almost told this in the previous answer, and I'm happy not to do that, because I can tell it now. That what I see is that Flutter becomes, an industry standard slowly. So I have the experience that some third-party SaaS providers are selling us. So this is the pitch that, hey, we will do the Flutter SDK, or it's already there, or the package is there. You just have to use it. And I have the example that we use a pretty special CRM platform because of the Burger King global stuff. And for this CRM provider to get us as a client, they developed the whole Flutter package only for us. because they knew that they will be able to resell this later on, and this will be an extra sales opportunity or sales reason for them. So right now, to have your SDK plugin, whatever, for Flutter up and running, it can, if you are a provider or if you are a software as a service, you work as B2B, it can be an extra sales reason to sell your product.
Yeah, indeed. I can also say that sometimes it could be a deal breaker. So if you don't have the Flutter SDK and the customer is building something in Flutter, they are not always eager to do their own bindings. So they just expect something, you just do drag and drop, and then there you go, everything works. So yeah, indeed, it's going mainstream.
I saw Janos
on this, I guess because of experience. Yeah. Okay. And then another thing, and you mentioned about user experience. So, and maybe this is a good question for you actually, because you didn't just build a new application, but you basically rebuilt one. So, how do you see any change or any impact on the user base, user experience, or even on the business itself as a result of this change of launching an application that is built on Flutter?
What we were able to measure, because we can talk about ideas and the experiences, but what we were able to measure, it's the new application is much faster, and we see that when we have a slow application, even on some exotic mobile device, when they leave without purchasing, the ratio of this kind of activity is much higher. So there is a strong correlation between the performance of the speed of the application and the opportunity to sell something, sell a wrapper, because you are hungry basically when you use our application, and it's fast food, so we have to have a fast application, and we see significant reduction in the load times, even in the initial ones. So when you open up the application, but going from screen to screen, we were able to reach 50% reduction of times between screens. So this was a big success for us, and we see in the conversion rates.
So we don't have a live application in Flutter yet, but what I can mention is we have good colleagues working in the UX field, and they bring awesome ideas to the table. And what I noticed is that we never say no to them, right? That's true. So we can do all the things they mentioned.
I can't compare the difference between Flutter and something else because we only have one application. So I can only compare the state before the application and now that we have the application. So we saw that our clients moved quite quickly to mobile from web-based systems, and currently around 60% of the logins come from mobile. And the first responses from our clients were quite positive, and they were like, finally you have an application. So they kind of expected this from us. So it was a good move, and it was a necessary move to have an application. And I can say that it's quite successful among our clients.
Angor?
Be Daniel in the meantime.
Yeah, from my end, I can't really compare anything because we don't have a production application, right? That as an end user application, so we only do the SDK part. But yeah, as I mentioned for the previous question, for the customers, it meant for us, for our customer base, so we're not the end users, but the B2B customers, for them it really matters, Flutter, and they like how easy to use it and how quickly it does things because it compiles to the native code, and they really prefer to use Flutter in their application.
As from our side, we are in a migration. So we are migrating the main Talabat applications from Android and from iOS to Flutter. Basically, we have more than 25 screens, and we are migrating these screens like independently, most of them. So we are running most of experiments. We are running most of A2A tests. So basically, our users also cannot basically like decide that do they see a Flutter screen or a native origin or the variant. Also in our company, basically some like the tracking was one of the hardest thing in our migration, because in-house we also some teams was also not able to basically like guessing that which screen what we can see during this migration. So this is like all of the kudos is go to Flutter. What I also want to basically highlight in that Flutter is not just like providing a great experience for the users, but also it's providing a really great experience for our developers. So the developer experience also could increase in the recent times, not just with the hot reload feature, which was multiple times mentioned, but basically building a new feature, the tooling in Flutter, so many things helping the developers to basically like implementing and deploying something to production.
Thank you very much. And I have one last question for you. If we broaden the spectrum a little bit, how do you see that cross-platform development and Flutter itself fits into this larger landscape of mobile applications, or even just applications in general? And how do you see it? It doesn't compare, but how does it fit together with the progressive web applications? Do you have any thoughts on when to go one way or another, or do they even exclude each other? Yeah.
I will start. So I'm going for like 5 years from now. I would imagine that Flutter becomes a more standard solution for picking anything. Like a good example was Toyota for their entertainment system. The same goes for applications on our televisions or watches. So I would imagine that it becomes more standard for these use cases as well. Or in our use case, maybe like an ATM.
I'm quite positive as well. Flutter has definitely its limitations, but if someone chooses to go the cross-platform way, then I think currently Flutter may be the best choice. Especially now it has support for Linux, macOS, Windows, and web on top of the mobile platform. So I think it's a quite good choice. One example, though, we were thinking about adding some home screen widgets to our application, and that is one part that you can't implement in Flutter currently. So it definitely has some limits. But if you can live with that, then it's a fairly good choice, I think, and it will remain the same for the foreseeable future. It's backed by Google. It has a great community, and I think after 5 years of production readiness, it matured a lot, and it's now a mature system. So the basic packages are well maintained, stable. So I think it's a good choice.
I have two ideas on this. One idea is if I go back in time, 10 years, almost 10 years, I was in a big meeting room trying to convince some people that, hey, nevertheless, we will have a website what will be responsive and be able to use all of the devices. We have to keep the native applications. Please don't delete the native applications. So this was a conversation back 10 years ago that you know that there was a moment in the industry when the mobile web was booming at this is the easiest solution, just do a responsive website and everything will be okay. And currently I see the use cases where a mobile web is enough, and we see our applications, eating food, ordering food, doing some stock exchange stuff, when you have to have the application installed and have to have that kind of bonding with the user. So this is one thing that this is a trend, and I think we are on a good way to have the application ecosystem there. The multi-platform stuff, what was mentioned, is very important. I always have questions when we talk about a framework because they have life cycle, I'm sure, because we just had Titanium run out or end of life, and we were struggling with that. And I know that Flutter is backed by Google. We've seen some Google products closed in the past decade. We've been there. Who used Google Plus or whatever? I don't know. So I think if you're serious about your business, you have to be familiar with the native stuff. And because we were very Flutter positive today, I was always thinking about examples, and I'm very glad that we have a player guy here, because I see when you are doing pretty hard stuff on, for example, videos, if you have an OTT application, a streaming application, you want to insert ads, you want to measure ads, you have to go that close to the native layer of your iOS or Android system, where a framework can be an obstacle, and you have to dig through lots of layers if you want to do precisely the same, because if you are a TV company, you will be paid by played ads, so you have to be sure that every ad will be played and will be measured, and beginning and end. So I see some cases, but with this faster time to market, the big industry standard direction, I think Flutter will be here with us and will be the obvious choice if you want to have something not very complicated or deep, fast.
Yes, I agree. I think it will be there if Google will not shut it down at some point because they got bored, or I don't know what they think about it. I think it's gonna be there for a while, and seeing how it improves, I think it's a really good candidate for a default choice every time you wanna build something from scratch. Because it just if you don't have to do magical stuff and really native stuff, you are a startup and you have to quickly release something for the public. From a single code base, I think you can immediately cover web, Android, and iOS, and you covered probably most of your users, and they can always reach your product. And the extra addition for the native platforms, supporting smart TVs, supporting extra platforms like Samsung Tizen. I think it's a good way to improve your portfolio with a minimal effort, because you just try to combine, and I think usually if you target other platforms, the majority of your stuff will work and it will be there. And then sometimes you have to do some native bridges if the feature is missing, but I think it's a really good candidate for the future for scale-ups and startups.
2 or 3 years ago, I was invited a similar panel discussion, and there one of the participants mentioned that Flutter is a really nice and fun tool, but when it comes to like payment, he's not trusting this technology. And in the time, like I asked the person to like commenting that Google basically they migrated their Google Pay application in Flutter. And it's so nice to see that Google is also like re-implementing more and more applications. Like some weeks ago, the Google Earth was basically like published fully in Flutter. Then the YouTube, there was also like one video editor application for basically like YouTubers. It was also built in Flutter. So it's really nice to see that Google is trying to prove that yes, this is a technology which can work in production from maintenance perspective, because basically the time to market and as really we can really easy and in a fast way we can reach the market. The startups and the smaller companies were the first adopters. Right now is the time to also convincing the large companies. My company was likely like convinced by the early successful POCs what we had. And basically, this is the next phase that more and more large companies will start to adopt and will be able to publish Flutter applications. And I know that in the beginning, most of the concerns about Flutter was that, okay, it's a young technology. There is no basically possible ways to maintaining a large application. And partially it was true. Some years ago, we also had to basically creating like our own CLI tool to maintaining packages. Right now, there is Melos. There are multiple solutions and approaches maintained by trustful companies. So I think it's the best time to also like jumping to this boat.
Thank you very much. I would like to thank all of you for joining us today for this conversation. And I think we can open now for questions and answers. Maybe János can also come here.
Yes, sure. But before we do that, I think there are lots of mobile developers in this room, or most probably mobile enthusiasts. So I would like to ask you to bring up your phone for a short exercise, because we will try to do something very new. So please, everyone, this guy as well. Do you have your phone in your hand? Then would you mind to target that QR code at the slide board and just check if it works? Because I would encourage everyone to check it. We usually publish our events there, so I appreciate if you can check if it works. Does it? Actually, one is, I think, our LinkedIn page, and the other is the UpScale site. So you can find all the events there. So this is just a short exercise. So thank you very much. And please follow us, because we just celebrated the 2,000th followers. So we will celebrate everyone in the next few days, I think. So thank you very much. And I appreciate your insightful conversation as well, and I truly appreciate your moderation. I think it was very professional. And János, if you can just come to the stage if you wish, then I really open the session of the questions. So if you have any questions. Okay, there are lots of questions here. So we start here, if you don't mind, and then I will pass the phone.
Okay, so thank you for the introductions and presentations. What do you think about the low-code approach of developing Flutter applications? Like Flutter Flow, there are some Figma plugins, etc. What do you think about it?
Great question. So who would like to answer first? Or maybe also in the panel if you want. Then okay, János.
So I did try some Figma plugins before, but I was not really satisfied with the results, because they just they generate not really reusable code. It will look like that, the design look like, but it will only look like that on that specific resolution, not scalable, not responsive, and you cannot really reuse these components. It can be a good template for your developers to work with, but it shouldn't be relied on too much. I didn't try Flutter Flow yet. I didn't really like their pricing, let's say. It's expensive. You cannot download your application, basically, if you don't pay them. You can kind of put it together. It's sort of like a nice demo, but you cannot get any code out, as I understand, without paying them.
Maybe say something? No, it's okay. And I think we had a question there. Thank you very much for the question. I think it was a great question.
So my question is to David. You mentioned that the underlying code in Flutter inspired you at the beginning, and there's a new kid on the block, Kotlin multi-platform. Have you looked around the underlying foundation of that technology? Is that something that might compete with even beat Flutter in some cases?
So my problem starts with the first letter, so it starts with K and not D. I actually did try the multi-platform a few years back. I'm not sure if it's mature enough to say so. But for Flutter, what I was looking for is specifically how the implementation was done. So I was looking for how they used Skia, and they are now replacing it with Impeller and those things. And that's when I saw the spark at the end of the tunnel that, yeah, this sounds good. And Dart was an extra on that.
Thank you very much. You can ask questions from the panelists from Belgium and Abu Dhabi as well, if you wish. Maybe about their international experience. Next question, because you will not have a chance to talk with them outside of this room. So it might be a good idea. Anyone? Oh, we have two questions. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry, I can see.
Daniel and Csongor, I think the question is coming to you.
Daniel's working at TO, right?
Okay.
So you mentioned that you basically maintain an SDK, and I think that's a maintaining cost in the native land and in Dart, right?
Sorry, can you repeat the question? Because sometimes the audio is not really clear to me.
Sure. So you mentioned that you maintain an SDK, not a full-fledged product in that sense. So there is a cost of maintaining the SDK on the native side and the Dart side. And the question is, did you encounter anything which was like pushing out the maintenance phase for these SDKs and the API that you wrote?
And struggles. Yeah. So the maintenance costs is there. That's something you have to swallow if you want to support it. It's something it has to be calculated in. So every time we develop a native feature, we have to introduce it also on the Flutter side, right? Because usually what people see that, okay, if you guys support this feature, then I assume it's there on every platform. Because what we have, we advertise ourselves as a universal player. So our APIs are common across all devices or SDKs we support. So if they see that, oh, I can, I don't know, do this or that on a video, they assume it's there on iOS, Android, web, and if they use Flutter, then obviously it should be there on Flutter. And that's something we have to take it into account. Sometimes the cross-platform SDKs like React Native and Flutter a bit later in the development phase to introduce those features. But if someone is directly asking that, hey guys, we need this in Flutter, then obviously you put the focus there and you introduce it together with the native SDKs immediately. But yeah, all based on timing, who is asking or when they ask. It's possible that the Flutter SDK is a bit behind. But it will be also on the same level. It's just a matter of time and priority.
Thank you very much.
Questions? One more.
So I felt the obvious love for Dart from some of you using with Flutter, but what about the backend? So have you started or are you considering using Dart in the backend?
Actually use Dart as a server-side language for a few things. They are not actually in favor though. So because as a bank, we can just use anything. But it was a good experience, like for backend development at least.
Short answer, we don't use it, and we are not planning. And it seems to me that Dart is mainly for Flutter, so it's not the best choice for server-side development. Yeah, that's the short answer. Only for front-end.
I have a question for you. So, did you use a Dart backend for a Flutter application specifically? And did it make it easier to communicate with your app? Like, could you share some models or logic in between the backend and the frontend?
Well, it was not meant for the application itself, but rather than the ecosystem, just like the UnPub solution, so a self-hosted part. I would say that it's possible to reuse some logic if it's well separated, though. So that's an architectural decision. Though. And it can be compiled to Linux, so it's pretty fast. I would assume that it can reach the Node ecosystem in that sense. But this is an assumption. I didn't mention.
Yeah, I just wanted to have a comment on the server-side development that basically one of the biggest announcements was recently that with Flutter 10, I believe we also received the Dart 3 version, which was providing so many language features, which started to finally supporting the functional programming, which is heavily preferred and adopted in the server-side development. So, for example, using patterns, pattern matching, records, multiple language features could also supporting that functional style, which can also get the attention of the backend engineers. From my side, I didn't spend too much time on that, but also using right now tools maintaining multi-packages inside of one monorepo, then we can build something in Flutter, a small UI, and we can start to using server-side implementation. And there are multiple tools. We have Dartfrog maintained by very good ventures. We have also the server pod, so multiple participants and then tools are helping us to basically build something really easily.
Nothing to add. It's completely fine because we are very close to the end. So I again appreciate your live conversation. Maybe we can give a clap and then. It was one of my best experience really in terms of panel discussion. So really, I appreciate your time and this insightful conversation. And let me say thank you for everyone for coming or joining online. And one more advertisement is that November 25th, which is a Saturday, we are going to plant trees. It's an annual custom in UpScale. So if you want to join us, you can find this event as well in the LinkedIn page or the website. So I'm happy to see everyone there because we go there as a company, but usually we do it as a forestation activity. So thank you very much again. So November 25th. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Yes.